Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, we're going to call to order the November 11th, 2021 MARTA Board of Directors meeting to order. May I have everyone sign in, please? Thank you. I guess it would help if I turned the mic back on, correct? May I have a motion for the approval of the October 14, 2021 work session minutes?
Move for approval, Pod.
Thank you. Let us vote at this time. Approval of the October 14, 2021 work session minutes has passed. Under the chair's report, our next item is the nominating committee. So I'd like to announce the 2022 nominating committee for the MARTA Board of Directors. We have Robert Ashe, representing Fulton County, Rod Frison, representing DeKalb County, Catherine Powers, representing Clayton County, and our fourth person is, who is that? Frida. Yes, Frida. Frida is Fulton. And Ash is, did I say Ash was Fulton? I'm thinking about Atlanta being in Fulton. You guys forgive me. I was in a horrible accident a couple of weeks ago, and so I'm so excited to be here and have the ability to be in this meeting with you. So by the grace of God, that's my personal opinion. Also, under the chair's report, before we turn it over to our CEO and GM, Jeff Parker, is that I'd like to acknowledge Veterans Day today. And I'd like to ask if there are any veterans in the room. Please raise your hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your service. Years ago, as the diversity chairperson for AT&T over the state of Georgia, I will never forget our very first acknowledgement of diversity under Veterans Day is a gentleman who had served in Vietnam and was in a wheelchair, and he used the very first words, "Freedom is not free." And so with that, in acknowledgement of Veterans Day, I'd like to say, freedom is not free, and thank you for all that you've done to make this a free country. At this time, I'll turn it over to our GM and CEO, Jeffrey Parker.
Thank you, and I am also grateful that you're here in person and glad you're recovering well. We have several items on my general manager's report, and then we do have an executive session also. I'm going to move through some of mine quickly to make time for discussion about some others. The first one, which is I think is an incredibly important initiative that we have been undertaking for some years, I want to just sort of circle back on some items and out of expediency give a preview. I think to the next bus presentation we make at the Operations Committee, we'll delve into these items in detail. But in setting the stage, some of the board members were here when Collie Greenwood was hired. Others have come onto the board after. And to set the stage, when Collie came to MARTA initially as the chief of bus operations, we had declared sort of an internal focus on bus operations around improving our core bus service, and we sort of internally called it the Year of the Bus. And that was really to help facilitate a focus around some key initiatives. And as we all know, things that are big and complex take time to initiate, but I think that we've been advancing several of them that you're well aware of successfully, and then we have some really interesting things that are out now and things that are coming forward. So really quickly, I want to go over some really 4 key bus service. And here we're talking about our core bus service. We're not talking about the projects in Clayton County or in Summerhill or in the rest of Atlanta where we're making capital investments in a larger scale. This is fixing the core bus service that is so important to our ridership. We have been underway and we made a significant milestone in our bus network redesign. We have released the ridership and the coverage maps to the public. And just to remind everyone in the room that we are using these 2 maps, I like to call them bookends. One represents a system that would utterly meant to drive ridership at the expense of covering all the neighborhoods that we serve, and the other extreme is one that is aimed at covering as much of our region as we could cover at the expense of frequent service, and we know frequent service will drive up ridership. And so these 2 maps are intended to drive a discussion, and there is a great conversation going on in the Twitter sphere right now around these 2 maps. And this will help us ultimately bring to the Board of Directors through a sizable public discussion, a recommendation around where we land in the middle of that range of ridership versus coverage. So we will be advancing that and giving you some presentations around that. The other item that we've been working on for some time and has been going very successful is the commitment we've made to our jurisdictions around the installation of bus shelters and amenities. As I think everyone knows, we've made a commitment over a 5-year period to install 1,000 amenities across our system, really focus on improving the quality of life for our bus riders at our busiest bus stations. And just to report, we continue to make successful strides on that. In fiscal year 21, we successfully installed 2,000 bus shelters. And as we speak right now, we are on track in this current fiscal year to do the same. We have 100 in design, 46 in the permitting process, 5 in construction, and 49 already installed. So we're well underway to work through and be meeting that long-term goal of 1,000 amenities in a 5-year period. We also made commitments to some of our jurisdictions at some key spots, and we're advancing those projects, our transit centers, and we continue to do the preliminary work for the South DeKalb Mall, Stonecrest Mall, as well as the Clayton County Transit Center at the Justice Center. We did open a kind of a transitional facility at the Justice Center. I guess it was late 2019, if I'm correct in my recollection. But we're moving to, for example, bring a breeze machine to that facility and make it a more permanent facility. So we're continuing that. And then the one item that we haven't really brought much discussion to the board about, but I think is probably one of the most important things that we will be doing over the next couple of years, is a real look at improvements to our core bus system through enhancements around travel times and reliability. And we will, I originally intended to kind of do a presentation on this, and out of time, we'll do it at one of the committee meetings. But our planning group, led by Heather Aladef, has been working closely under her team with Collie and his team, looking at a process to identify route enhancement projects, both short-term, midterm, and long-term. And what we are doing, they've created a tool so that we can look at our entire system, and this tool will help us to look at a variety of lenses of the service that we provide. And this will be aimed at improving bus ridership, the experience and safety, improve bus travel time and the reliability of that service. There's a heavy focus on prioritizing historically underinvested areas, and we're looking at how we can leverage these improvements through short-term, low-cost capital investment. The way we will be doing and implementing those is through really looking at our routes with this tool, looking at areas where we can improve the stations, the stops, with the concept of, although we have a blueprint for a bus shelter today, are some of the bus routes so busy that a super station could be defined and a little bit better amenities at those stops. Another key and critically important issue that we will be undertaking is looking at safety and connectivity and making sure that our customers and people who live in the neighborhoods that we're serving can cross the street safely. So we'll be looking at crosswalks and working with our municipalities and the DOT to make improvements. And then travel time reliability, where we'll be looking at the potential, and these would fall into the longer term improvements. Queue jumpers where the bus can get in the front of a line, a bigger reliance on signal prioritization and other projects that will just make our bus system more predictable and more reliable. And so, we'll file this into Little Things Matter. A bus rider who gets to a stop and it's a slightly better station, the reliability is better because a couple of the most congested intersections now have signal prioritization. Their walk across the street when they get home at night and the sun setting is a little bit safer because either now there's a crosswalk or an improved sidewalk and those things that make it safer. And those little things and the accumulation of those little things will ultimately make our bus service more attractive to our customers. And I think that that's something that we've got to continue to focus on, not just because we have a pandemic and our ridership needs to recover, but because the people who live in our area and our customers really deserve an improvement in that service. So more to come on that. We will give a big presentation and articulate it, but I just want to raise everyone's sort of consciousness about all of this really started with the notion of wanting to bring in someone, and that someone is Collie, and he's ultimately been now promoted to be the Chief Operating Officer, but his two deputies focused on rail and bus, and I think we've got a real good focus and a continued effort of improving our core bus service. I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but ask Collie to come up for the third item, and as he is coming up, just a short note about the recent APTA Expo that happened in Orlando. Several of the staff members were there, a few of the board members were there. It was an incredible event. We had a great conference, great expo. But I do want to draw the attention to some things that happened at the recent board meeting. Is that we are? I was lucky enough to get elected as as a member of the APTA Executive Committee, and I was elected to represent the 10 large pay-us dues, APTA dues members, and that serves as a 3-year term. But we also, by APTA bylaws, have a permanent seat on the board. which the general manager would sit, although now I'm on the executive committee. So because we now have the opportunity to put someone on the board, Rita Scott, as board chair, has moved in to serve that 3-year term. So congratulations to Rita for now being a member of the APTA board. So Kali is going to go through the issue around service, and then I will finish out with talking about the most important and exciting thing that's happened in a long time, and that's the passage of a federal transportation authorization. So go ahead, Kali.
Thank you, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon, everyone. Jeff has just talked about some of the proactive things that we've been doing over the last year or so, and from time to time, as you can well imagine, we have to be reactive to the conditions. So next slide, please. The conditions that I wanted to talk to you about today, it's nothing that you're unaware of, but I just wanted to encapsulate them. So there we are at the top blue line is our budgeted bus operator workforce, 1366. And over time, this orange line represents a steady decline in the amount of available operators that we have to meet that budgeted need. Essentially, that 1366 minus 1179 is 187, or rather 14% shortfall from what we should have as a bus operator full-time roster. Many reasons for that. Not unique to MARTA, not unique to the transit industry, in fact. Very difficult to recruit people at a time like this, and even further, with the onset of COVID-19, a number of operators and employees in various categories opted to leave the service. Nevertheless, we do have a lot of irons in the fire when it comes to that. Our HR team's working diligently. We've gone to a quick-to-hire process improvement. They've increased the number of staff in their recruitment department. They've taken 3 of them and made them dedicated bus operator recruiters. So all of that to say that this condition is indeed temporary, as the title would suggest, but nevertheless, it's still an actual fact that we're facing this situation right now. There are marketing improvements as well that we're working on to bring more people into MARTA and get them processed as MARTA bus operators. And then so that leaves, a 14% shortfall. So there's 86% of the number of people that we should have. Next slide, please. And of that 86%, we have an absenteeism issue. So, inverse of what you saw on the last slide, this trend line is going steadily up. And so we've got it's this confluence of factors, but you can see at around April 20th, when we were talking a lot about COVID-19, you can see our typically single-digit absenteeism start to spike. Goes up to 17% and continues trending up to the point where we're at 20% right now. So that continues to trend upward. Add to that the fact that MARTA has taken a very responsible position on COVID-19, our vaccination and compliance rates. We've been working with the employees over the last 4 weeks, giving them lots of time, lots of opportunity, lots of notification, but the time has come that today is the day we start to take disciplinary action for people that are not either fully vaccinated with an uploaded card or tested, testing on a weekly basis. So people have options, but those that choose to do neither will suddenly be facing disciplinary action. And if we were to have started that action last week, to give you an idea, that would have meant 60 bus operators that would have been up for termination in terms of their employment. So if you add that number, and we're projecting a worst case scenario, if you add that number to the 14% that we talked about, on the last slide, now you're talking about an 18% shortfall plus high absenteeism. And what that means is, it means that it's hard to predict where the vacancies are going to happen. It means that on a daily basis, an operator who is here is able to call in, book off, say I'm not working, and then the customer just finds out in the moment, and sometimes behind the moment. And we thought it's prudent if, as a management team, we're able to consolidate with the resources that we do have and be a little bit more organized about the level of service that we're able to provide and promise to the customer. So that's what we're doing. This is a temporary measure aimed at at addressing a temporary condition, because as I said, our recruitment is improving, and it will, and our absenteeism will continue to trend downwards as the number of employees that join our workforce are fully vaccinated, and as our employees that are here begin to comply. Next slide, please. So in the meantime, what we're proposing is to go to a temporary service modification, and it's a level of service that our customers are very used to. In effect, it's a Saturday service. So it means, first of all, it means no bus routes are being cut. It's not like December or April of 2020. We're not cutting any of our bus routes. All 113 bus routes will remain. 96 routes will operate on a Saturday schedule. 11 routes that have been identified as high ridership routes, which is those that have been 75% of our pre-pandemic ridership or better, they will continue on the regular weekday schedule. In other words, we won't be changing those headways because it's the ridership demands are there now, so we'll continue to honor that. And then there's another 6 routes that normally wouldn't operate on Saturday, and they will operate on a daily basis on their regular weekday schedule. So again, no pulling of service in its entirety. So the Office of Planning has done a rough analysis indicating about 2.5% of our customers will be adversely impacted by these route changes, meaning you'll be waiting a little bit longer for a bus, or we'll have fewer trips out there. But this is feeding our Title VI equity analysis. Because it's a temporary measure, there's no formal requirement for a Title VI analysis, but we're doing one anyway, as we did last time in April, and we'll be sure to, to make sure that it's clear that we're measured and deliberate and careful about the adjustments that we make. And if there are any trends that come out of that Title VI equity analysis, we'll be sure to address those before this service level is cut in, which is December 18th. And the bottom note there, no change to rail service. Rail continues to operate at its level 2 a level of service as it has been over the past year, and we're pretty confident that will continue. Next slide, please. I'm here to answer any questions that may arise, but at the end of the day, we felt that the alternative was to just continue to post the same schedules and have the customer kind of guess in terms of what the level of service was going to be tomorrow, and we felt that this was a more responsible way to reflect the true workforce conditions that we have, and be able to meet the need, deliver on the promise, and have some truth in advertising in terms of what we're able to provide with our customers. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. Floyd?
Thank you. Collie, what kind of analysis or a investigation is possible to determine just how much of this is temporary and how much of it is not? I mean, we're all talking about changes in the world, due to what we've been through the last couple of years. Well, at what point in time, and how do you analyze, or, how much of this is real and permanent, and maybe we have to revise what we're thinking about that. So right. Is that clear?
That's a great question. In terms of ridership, that's exactly where that question lands really strongly. What is the future demand for our service out there? Are people going to be working 3 days a week from home? Are people going to be moving closer to work? Or, what are the patterns that are going to be changing? So that's a great question, especially in that space. We don't know. We're kind of, I heard the term a few days ago, it's almost like we're flying the plane while we're building it, and we're trying to navigate as best we can in a changing environment. But when it comes to specifically the resources that we have available, MARTA is in a greater level of control over that. So yes, there are employees that are leaving the workforce, largely, as demonstrated by that chart, largely due to, COVID-19, whether it's because they're sick or they don't want to be exposed, or they don't want to comply. But because of our policies, we are now hiring bus drivers that are already vaccinated, so that speaks to the resiliency of the workforce that we will have as we build in the future. And it's entirely up to MARTA how many people we hire, and how effective our recruitment efforts are. And so, as I said earlier, we are determined to increase those efforts to the point where we have full control and full representation of, so the temporary measure of the workforce availability, I think that's very temporary and very controllable. But the demand for the service, I think we'll just have to watch this space and see where we end up.
Last comment, question, really. Is the transit industry, from a national standpoint, doing some sort of an analysis about what's really going on in the transit world these days? And I'm not qualified to ask this question at all, much less make some sort of statement about it. But I'm just curious as to where the other people are falling within these lines, and are we looking into that part of the thing?
Yeah.
Too. And the last statement I'll make is that I can't think of anybody I'd rather have in charge of this, including Mr. Parker, than you. I mean, I'm really feel confident that you are looking at this in the right way. So anyway, I
Thank
just
you,
want to
Mr.
make sure I
Floyd.
said
Thank
that.
you. And to that, yes, the American Public Transit Association is very vested in this issue. I don't think we can call it analysis just yet. It is a collection of data, a collection of where each transit agency is, and the struggle is very much shared. MARTA is just, we're not an outlier by any means in terms of what we're facing. Most transit agencies are, the ridership dropped. We're starting to come back. Some are as high as 75% of pre-COVID ridership. But the workforce availability issue is the one that's, we're exactly where everybody else is for the most part.
Mr. Durant?
Collie, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I think this is a really thoughtful and responsible approach. So I commend you and the team for the way you've approached it. And I want to make sure, and I know you are, but let's really be diligent getting the word out to the ridership so that we minimize opportunities for complaints that we're going to be hearing. And the last thing I wanted to share is yesterday in TAQC, Transportation Air Quality Committee for Atlanta Regional Commission, there was a really good presentation on the TDM work that's being done, that's being shepherded by the Atlanta Regional Commission, and I'm guessing that MARTA has been involved in all of that. But they were asking the members of the committee to share what they were experiencing with COVID and transportation demand and that sort of thing. And so I just want to make sure that you and others avail yourselves of that information to understand what they're uncovering, because they have been doing a lot of polling to understand where things seem to be heading during this uncertain time.
Thank you, Mr. Durrett. I'll be sure to tie into that.
Mr. Snyder and then Mr. Pond.
Oh, sure. Thank you for that. Colleague, great presentation. Thank you for that information. Wanted to ask, how long is this temporary arrangement going to last? Or is there a preset amount?
There's no preset date.
Okay.
There's no preset date. This is really to preempt our markup. So, where the operators come in and actually choose the work they're doing. So we have preset dates for the markups, but because we are determined to return service as quickly as possible, we're not even going to say we have to wait till each markup. As soon as the resources start to build, we will have prioritized the areas of need and start to fill those with our extra vehicles, our extra operators as soon as possible. So I don't have a date. As soon as we do have a better handle on when we think that will be, we'll be sure to share that with the group.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
so let's commit to, and Collie and Lou's bringing periodic updates to the board around hiring and retention and absenteeism, because that's driving all this, right? Right. This is not something we want to do. This is something that we believe is the rational and appropriate thing to do under the circumstance that we face, and that's the driver. We need to be transparent with the board about our efforts to get those numbers back up, and we'll commit to bringing that information back to you, so you'll understand our decision-making process as far as bringing service back.
Mr. Pond?
Carly, have we considered reaching out to our retired bus drivers and bring them back on a contract basis where they might want to work 2 or 3 days a week at a lower day-to-day environment?
Yes, great point. We've thought of that and a variety of other markets that we, typically haven't tapped into. So MARTA representatives are moving into other areas of the community in terms of recruitment. But absolutely, the drivers was one of the first thoughts, and Luz isn't with us today, but that was something that Luz had reported out in an inter-team meeting, that they were, specifically reaching out to drivers who take less training, quite frankly, than the general public would, to get them back up to speed.
Ms. Abdul Salam, and then Ms. Blakely.
Thank you. Thank you, Carly, for bringing this to us with seems to be a well-thought-out plan. Do you know when this will go into effect?
December 18th.
And how will the riders be notified?
There's a notification tactic. I'm not as well versed in it as our external affairs folks are, but it'll be managed through that group.
Okay. And lastly, you mentioned something in your discussion of quick to ride. What is that?
Quick to hire.
Quick to hire.
Quick to hire. So currently, we have a number of prudent processes that are in place. When someone declares an interest in working at MARTA, there are a number of checks and balances and processes and time at each stage that in today's hiring environment means we're competing for that individual with other agencies, and the time we're taking to do all those checks and balances, we're losing them to other job interests. So we've started to streamline our processes, maintaining those things that are, safety checks and background checks that are urgent and important, but we're even looking at the way we train people and, the kind of certification that they're coming in with, and what can MARTA do to meet them earlier in the process and bring them along so that they don't lose faith while this, it takes its time. So quick to hire just means retooling of our existing processes so they can get on and behind the wheel sooner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Question for you. Well, maybe not necessarily a question, a statement. So just the decline that the graph shows is concerning, of course, but it's great information. I want to make sure that the feedback that we're getting from employees, that they don't feel like it's falling on deaf ears, right? That we're considering what they're saying, and if we need to make modifications in order to retain the talent that we have, as opposed to having to essentially start anew with new employees.
Right.
And I'm not sure how that would work, but I would like to think that would be some type of consideration, just to make sure that we're not, being seen as this organization who's not listening, who's not cognizant of what's happening on the ground and what the needs are of the employees to be effective and to stay with us.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, it's the old adage, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, and
Yeah.
you've got a trained, motivated employee. And this goes beyond, what we're talking about today, but our frontline management's open door policy has to be extended to not just an open door, but get out there and sit with the employees and actually hear what they're talking about. And we do that. In many cases, that makes a difference. We hear them, we make the differences. But sometimes the reason for departures is something that we just agree to disagree. So, in the compliance area, for example, MARTA has said we've worked with people for a month. We've given them training. We've given them, answered all the questions. We've brought on, vaccination clinics and testing clinics and all of that. But at the end of the day, if we disagree, then there's going to be a parting of the ways. But to your point, the environmental issues in the workplace, we're definitely attuned to that and making those changes to retain as many employees as possible.
Are there any other questions? I have a couple, but I wanted to make sure our board members had an opportunity to ask their questions first. Is there a breakdown by jurisdiction as to the affected routes so that we can receive communication from a concerned rider, would understand what routes in those jurisdictions have been affected? That's question number one, so I'll wait for that answer.
Okay, thank you. That breakdown is coming as our planning department is working through, but within a week, we will have that because they will have done the Title VI equity analysis, and they will have it segmented by jurisdiction.
Thank you. My second question is, you mentioned hiring non-vaccinated employees, but disciplining those who are not vaccinated. Is that correct?
I'm sorry if I misspoke. I meant to say we're hiring vaccinated employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Greenwood? My last question, I'm sorry, is the Fulton Technology and Energy Enhancement Authority, do you foresee that as a method to help us with hiring drivers or mechanics or something? Do you foresee that as being a process that we could utilize?
No, I think it's fair to say through the FTIA, MARTA's profile will be enhanced. There will be more people hearing about MARTA, seeing MARTA as an employer, but we're focused more on the STEM-related, science, technology, and math area, the technical roles. Absolutely, there are probably roles inside of MARTA that would apply there, but the bus driver, the role is not necessarily one of them.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Kali. I'm going to finish with a brief federal update. And it's, exciting news. On November 5th, the House passed the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. We all were following the news, I think, day in and day out about, what was going on politically and crossing our fingers. But on late Friday night on November 5th, the House passed the bill. The President is expected to sign the bill into law on Monday the 15th. The infrastructure bill provides $1.2 trillion in spending over a 5-year period, of which $550 billion is new federal investment, so that's over the whole program. The bill provides $91.2 billion, with a B, in funding for the Federal Transit Administration over a 5-year period, of which about $40 billion is above the baseline. So just to kind of put that in context, $40 billion of the $91 billion is above where we have been sitting historically over the past decade. So this is a significant increase in funding to the Federal Transit Administration. Another critically important part of this is, I think many of you know, but you all don't, may not fully appreciate, a bill is one thing, but then we've got to authorize the money every year. And so unique to history is that this bill also authorized an additional $15.75 billion in a supplemental appropriation from general reserves for the FTA. So there's a level of guaranteed funding that we will be getting, and this isn't entirely left up to the appropriators. Now, there's a little bit of controversy about whether or not that can be done, but as it sits today, we've got significant protections. The funding in the bill includes, and this isn't everything, bus and bus facility grants programmed of $16 billion, bus and bus facility formula of $3 billion, some discretionary grants for bus and bus facilities as $7.6 billion, low-no emissions program at $5 billion, which is a significant increase. The capital improvements grant program, and that includes both the new starts and small starts, is significantly increased to $24 billion. So two things have happened, and this is probably one of the two most impactful items to MARTA. The available funds in the CIG program is close to being doubled. So the pool of funds is substantially bigger. And then, and with the support of our Senate delegation really helping leading this effort, a small tweak to the Small Starts program was approved. And what that change is raised, there was a cap that a Small Starts program could not be larger than $300 million. That was increased to $400 million. And then the federal eligible share increased from 100 to $150 million. And the reason I say this is the combination of a bigger pool of money and those changes are very important to us because that's where we're going to be having to be successful. In advancing all of our expansion programs, we're not going to be successful if we can't get federal funding. So bigger pool of money and a change in the program which will allow us to have larger programs at the small start level. Critically important. There are a whole host of other grant programs that are discretionary. Many of them are controlled at the Secretary of Transportation level. I won't go through all those programs in detail, but we will have more opportunities to apply for discretionary grants, which we believe we will be well positioned to continue to receive those. And then the other piece is that the overall program is bigger. In the program, there is money that comes to transit agencies through through the FTA, through a formula. And that increase, we believe, will increase somewhere between $30 and $40 million a year coming directly, or coming to MARTA, I shouldn't say directly, coming to MARTA. So that's a significant increase. Those are the projects, those are the monies that we apply to many of our infrastructure, our systems projects with our existing infrastructure, supporting the planning work that we do on early projects. All the federally eligible projects will benefit from that. So that's a significant improvement. So we are excited, extremely excited about the opportunity that we have in front of us through this passage of the, what's called the Jobs Act. But I also want to bring to your attention 3 other bills that are still out there. And just to kind of, bring some clarity, because there's a lot of things going on. There is also the Build Back Better program, and this is, sometimes it's being called the soft infrastructure program, and that was the bill that the moderate Democrats and the progressive Democrats were saying they have to go together. That was sorted out on the 5th, but that bill still sits out there. And while we've all followed the news around that bill at a macro level, that it's changing and it's coming down and this is being removed and that's being removed, the most exciting thing for the transit community is that there are funds in there for transit programs that have largely, in all of the conversations that have gone on about what might be in and what might be out, those lines have really not changed. One of them is, I think, one of the most potentially transformational things that we have in front of us. And, it's a bill, it's not law, and there's a long ways to go on this, but there is a bill where it's a focus between a joint program called the Affordable Housing Access Program Competitive Grants Program to be issued jointly by the FTA and the Department of Housing. And it's really to support access to affordable housing and enhance the mobility of residents in disadvantaged communities or neighborhoods in persistent poverty communities or low-income riders generally. So we've got an opportunity. It is not a well-defined opportunity in the law. Let's assume that it remains in the bill and passes and becomes law. This is clearly an area where the administration will have to promulgate regulations on how to access that money and what sort of items will be, available to be gone after. It's a little, I think, out of the ordinary that two federal agencies are running this program. It's, so sort of, is this an FTA program? Is it a HUD program? FTA has very clear and concise programs. HUD tends to do things in block grants. So I think there's some, questions of how that's all going to play out. But, I think it's great that this is an area that has remained consistently in the bill as this is advanced. The third thing that I want to mention, actually I'm going to mention more than four, but the Senate Democrats have released, I believe it got through the Appropriations Committee, the Transportation, Appropriations Bill, the Transportation and HUD Bill for the FY22 appropriations, and I think of note is that it is, generally supportive of transit and congressionally directed spending, AKA earmarks, remain in the Senate side, and we have, coming out of the Appropriations Committee, Senators Ossoff and Warnock supported $3.8 million for electric buses at MARTA, and Senator Warnock has an appropriation for $5 million for the Clayton County O&M facility. So we will continue to track that. Just point out that OSHA has released information on vaccination and testing. So, we're now coming into, we heard from Kali around the impacts of the thoughtful and rational decision that this board and we're implementing at MARTA's level. But more and more businesses that we work with will be falling under this regulation. I know there's some court actions that are going on, but I think eventually this will be implemented come early next year, and there may be some impacts on us. We've got significant service providers to us who will fall under this law who may be struggling with hiring and retaining people under this law as well. And then the last thing that I want to mention, and this is, I think of all the things that are going on at a federal level, maybe the most unlikely thing to become law, but Senate Bill 3011, there hasn't been much discussion about this, but this is a law that, has some chance of passing that would allow the money that has been sent to the cities, the ARP funds that have been sent to the states and the cities to be used following the FTA's 5307 program. So what this could, if passed, could present is an opportunity for some of our jurisdictions or the state to expand their thoughts around how are we going to spend our ARP funding to broaden it to some of our transit capital programs. I think it's too early in the cycle of this bill passing to really start thinking about that and working through that, but it is something that Congress is focused on. They're very interested in making sure that those monies are spent quickly and efficiently, and so there's some who are thinking to expand that to public transportation, which right now would not be used. And so interestingly enough, that money would actually be able to be used as a local share for a match. It would not be going through the FTA, so it would almost be it would be really treated as local money, so. Unless there are questions about that, about the, any of the items, but in particular, my update program concludes my report, so I'm not sure if there are any specific questions, anyone?
Are there any questions for Mr. Parker? Hearing none, we'll go into executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we move into executive session
Pardon me?
For the purposes
for the purposes of litigation and personnel.
Yes.
For the purpose of litigation and personnel, we will go into executive session.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Let us vote. Okay, thank you. All right.
Follow protocol there.
think we've got a couple. We'll wait another 3 minutes. Oh, Jim's here? Okay. Stacy, did Miss Blakely live? She left? Okay, great. At this time, we're going to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn the executive session of the November 11th, 2021?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Raise our hands. Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn also the work session of the MARTA Board of Directors for November 11th, 2021?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. Therefore, we'll call to order the November 11th, 2021 Board of Directors meeting for the MARTA Board of Directors. Everyone, would you please sign in?
I don't think we can.
Pardon me? Oh, we can't.
We can sign in? Just let us know if it doesn't work for somebody. Okay, they got it going.
Are there any changes to the agenda for today?
Madam Chair, we'll just have a settlement at the end of the agenda as the final item. Ask for your approval of a litigation settlement.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the change to the agenda?
I move approval.
A second.
Thank you. Any opposed? The addition has been changed and added to the agenda. At this time, we have public comments. We have... I keep turning it off. Please forgive me. We have in our audience 10 public comments. Ms. O'Neill, are there any comments via email or voicemail as well?
Yes, Madam Chair, there was one comment submitted via email from Dr. Ed Williams. That comment will be attached to or sent to you via email today and then attached to next month's minute, or the minutes of this meeting when sent to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like everyone to know, under public comments, you have two minutes, started to say 10, 2. And first we call Tish McDonald from King and Spalding Law Firm. Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here today. For the benefit of the group, Madam Chair, members of the board, I am with the law firm of King and Spalding, and with Jessica Sabbath, who is with me here today. We are representing the Outfront Media in connection with a notice of protest that we have instituted in connection with the request for proposal P48265, which awarded a contract for transit and digital advertising services to another. And for the benefit of the board, I'll be very brief. I know I've got short time. As stated in the October 28th presentation to the Business Management Committee, I know you know this, the MARTA Act requires that contracts be awarded to the lowest possible bidder. And under the procurement manual, and again, this board I know is familiar with that standard, contracts are to be awarded to the most responsive and responsible contractor whose proposal is in the best interest of the authority. Additionally, the request for proposal itself mandates 6 selection criteria that should have been considered as the basis for the award. We submit as council that collectively these are the standards that this board is required to follow in deciding whether to approve this resolution. Well, consistent with these standards, and as some of our very, very talented representatives of Outnet will explain, will explain, Our client was clearly the lowest bidder, lowest responsible bidder, and it's in the best interest to please approve or reject or rescind the resolution and approve Outfront as the award winner. As you will hear from other commenters, speaking on behalf of Outfront today, we respectfully submit that the presentation made to the Business Committee on October 28th had many material errors, which misstated the financial projections that my client had made, as well as, and thank you for your time. And I
Thank
believe
you.
we had a little bit of out of order, I believe, up to the board. Is Andy, is it okay?
We have them in order of how they were written.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We were giving you the honor of number one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's Andy Saribas. Did I pronounce that correctly? If not, please correct me.
It's Sarubis, Madam Chair.
Saribas, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, directors. I am the Chief Commercial Officer of Outfront Media, and I wanted to introduce our colleagues to talk about the exact issue that our council just represented. Outfront Media, for those of you who don't know, is a $7 billion New York publicly listed company. We have a very solid balance sheet, and we have been serving this community for about 40 years through the MARTA contract. We have never defaulted on any of our commitments. We have never even threatened to default on any of our commitments, and the material guarantee that we give to you is an important part of this contract. We have supported that in every one of our contracts around the country as the largest transit provider for advertising in the United States. And that means something for MARTA. The other piece of the deal is revenue share. And our revenue share to you is backed up by 700 salespeople around the country, a 100-person strong group here in Atlanta. We are a Georgia-based company. We have a significant amount of history here. We are part of the community in Georgia, and we want to make sure that we can maintain that going forward. We believe that our proposal was better than the one that was submitted by our competitor. We believe that there were inaccuracies, as we've talked about, in the submission from staff to you, and we would hope that you would review that with the protest letter as part of your deliberations. The revenue share and the material guarantee are, in the estimate of us relative to the projections that were put forward by staff, better than our competitor in that regard. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer. I am available to the staff here 24/7, and any phone calls that want to be made, I can take them at any time of the day. Thank you, and I'll introduce my colleagues next.
Thank you so much. Our next public comment will be from Mike Nelson.
Thank you. Members of the board are tasked with a difficult decision based on a recommendation that is laden with inaccurate information. I would focus today on the financial components of Outfront Media's bus and rail proposal and explain how our proposal is much more beneficial to MARTA and its constituents than our competitors offer. First, Outfront's minimum annual guarantee is $7.86 million higher than our competitor. This is a significant difference. Outfront's minimum annual guarantee is approximately 30% higher. This money is money that MARTA can put into its budget and count on receiving, which benefits not only MARTA, but the taxpayers that MARTA services. Second, each year MARTA will receive the higher of the minimum annual guarantee or a revenue share based on a percent. The numbers presented to the Business Management Committee were simply inaccurate. This is extremely important as we want to make sure the committee and the board have all accurate facts. The presentation incorrectly showed that MARTA would receive $4 million more from the other competitor. When applying the higher of concept to MARTA's own projected revenue amounts, the net value to MARTA from Outfront is actually $886,000 more than the competitor. So to illustrate the importance based on MARTA's revenue projections, Outfront Guarantee represents 89%
Thank
of
you,
the
Mr.
revenue,
Nelson.
and the competitor 68%. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tim Bearden.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. I'm Tim Bearden, Government Affairs Manager for Outfront Media here in Georgia. Outfront Media has concerns regarding the inconsistent presentation of information during the Business Management Committee hearing, which took place on October 28, 2021. During the presentation by MARTA staff, the first 3 years of both proposals were removed from the presentation because, as it was explained, there would be no minimum annual guarantee for rail in those years. This is simply incorrect, as there is minimum annual guarantee by both companies in the first 3 years. Outfront proposed revenue share on rail for years 1 through 3 is 64%, compared to 50% by the competitor. Additionally, the slide did not properly reflect the increase from 64% to 66% proposed by Outfront in years 4 through 12. The net effect of omitting the first 3 contract years, understating Outfront's proposed revenue share in years 4 through 12, and failing to recognize that payments are the higher of MAG or revenue share, as Mike just discussed, made it look to the committee as if our competitor's offer was $4 million higher than Outfront's. Again, this is simply wrong. In fact, correcting these errors and based on MARTA's revenue projections, our offer is in fact $886,000 higher than our competitors. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Bearden. Our next speaker is Lee Bolton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Lee Bolton. I am with Outfront Media, the General Sales Director. Have been representing MARTA for well over 20 years. Oversee a local sales staff of 17 employees, and together with our national team, have been working to drive revenues and grow our revenues here in this marketplace. Outfront Media is perplexed by some of the procurement processes in the scoring of the award. Part 1 of the RFP mandates that the selection of the successful proponents be based on 6 defined selection criteria listed in descending order: industry experience, price proposal, advertising program and creativity, and non-advertising features and services, capacity of a national and local sales organization, financial capability and stability, and number 6, diversity and inclusion practices. During the presentation, the committee was shown the weighted scoring criteria for only 4 of the 6 evaluation factors. Staff did not discuss the actual score sheet detailing each company's score. The actual score sheet, which was not discussed, was included in the written material made available to the committee. The score sheet, in fact, shows that Outfront scored higher than their competitor. For reasons we do not understand, the fact was simply not addressed in the staff presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Our next public comment will be from P. Damian Gutierrez.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for having us. My name is Damian Gutierrez. I'm a vice president for transit at Outfront Media. And my role with Outfront and my longstanding membership on APTA's marketing committee allows me the privilege of seeing a lot of these transit advertising RFP processes play out. It is highly irregular and unprecedented in my personal experience to have a major transit authority disregard its own scoring criteria as well as the resulting scorecard. which indicates that one proposer has submitted a more beneficial proposal to the authority than the other. Some of my colleagues have referenced the $886,000. That was by MARTA's own revenue projections. Just want to be clear to the board that our MAG offer to MARTA was over $77.9 million. Again, as my colleagues have mentioned, we are a well-established, financially secure, sound company. That commitment to MARTA is something that you can budget against, is something you can count on from Outfront Media. The competitors submitted a guarantee to MARTA that was roughly $17.8 million less. In our 80 years of leadership in the transit advertising business, we have never failed to pay our guarantees to our transit municipal partners, nor have we delayed payments. The same cannot be said about the other proposer. Spend 5 minutes on Google and you'll find threats of default to our friends at Metro in Minneapolis, a history of challenging situations in New York. And I would encourage the board to highly explore the financial wherewithal of the respective proposers. And finally, like many of you, I'm an elected official, and I take the responsibility of taxpayer management of the hardworking folks who pay in very, very seriously. And
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez.
Encourage the MARTA board to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sylvia Childress.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the board for letting me speak. I am the bus and rail ops manager for Outfront Media and have been for 43 years. I manage all of the rail and bus inventory. I've had the pleasure of working very closely with hundreds of staff and team members at MARTA. Over these many years, I believe working as a team together, we've always been successful in providing out-of-home advertising programs and services to small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and national corporations using MARTA assets as the springboard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Childress. At this time, we will hear from Scott Goldsmith / John Roach.
It'll just be Scott Goldsmith. My name is Scott Goldsmith, President and Chief Operating Officer of Intersection Media. Thank you to the MARTA Board, Staff, and Selection Evaluation Committee for running a thoughtful RFP process and selecting Intersection Media as the recommended contractor. We are very excited at the prospect of working with MARTA and hope the board moves forward with an award to Intersection. We are ready and willing and able to take over this contract on January 1st of 2022. Intersection is unique in that we exclusively focus on generating revenue for cities and transit authorities. We do not operate billboards in markets, which we think distract from our work with our other municipal partners. With contracts across the country, including CTA, SEPTA, LA Metro, SFMTA, DART, just to name a few, we've maintained long-term relationships with some of our largest transit authorities in the United States over the past 20 years. We drive advertising revenue and innovation with our partners, always seeking to grow revenue. That said, while revenue is clearly job one, Intersection deeply believes that we can also enhance the MARTA brand and improve its customer experience through innovative technology. It is critical to our mission, and it drives us when we wake up every morning. We offer an in-house transit product and engineering team that develops cutting-edge products that provide content management system for real-time contextual messaging and deliver transit and other vital information to our customers when they need it the most. We very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and hope that you vote to approve the award of the contract to Intersection. I will let the staff talk about and convince you that our offer is the best, but I will just say that based upon our analysis, when you look at the numbers, we will provide the most revenue to MARTA over the 10-year contract and also enhance the customer experience through continued innovation through our technology and innovation products. Thank you very much. Let me just say one other thing in comment to one of the earlier comments about our past history. I would encourage the board, the staff, to reach out to any any contractor, any single transit authority, municipal authority we work for, they will give us a great review, and we're very comfortable with you reaching out to them and
Thank
asking
you,
about
Mr.
your
Goldsmith.
responsibility. Thank you so much.
Our next comment is from Judith Sullivan.
Forgive me if I read fast, but I've got a lot. I am a nurse, graduate of Marymount Tarrytown, was previously in Wall Street operations in bank and insurance, and informally representing Cathedral Towers and Campbellstone senior residences. There are very serious issues for bus riders. The board needs to get on top of management to do their job and not just accept what are being told. Do follow up and hold them accountable. The culture of MARTA is to say yes, will be done, and then pressed as to time frame, they won't give an answer and nothing gets done. The same culture was confirmed to me by an employee I met who works in headquarters. The app is not working properly for years as per Google Play Store reviews, and confirm what I experienced. A MARTA manager recently attempted to tell me it was my phone. The 5-star reviews are obviously phony plants as per another reviewer observation. Absolutely pure fiction. This is a customer-facing tool, and MARTA needs to authorize a completely rewritten app. Reviews include statements such as app crashes frequently, real-time bus locators unreliable, app continually freezes up, too many bugs, times out a lot and crashes, no reason to have an app this bugging, useless. 2 years ago, I was told they're working on it. Nothing has been done, just reloaded. Project management is time frames. That was a baloney comment. Management does not want to hear from drivers about issues they observe, only from customers. Management is obviously not interested in our welfare. They are not holding on to new hires, no lunchtime buses late, to traffic, and FedEx and UPS paying better salaries and benefits. The GPS that drivers log onto, when the GPS does not work, they have to call into a supervisor who logs them in. Then the bus does not show up on the bus app map. The GPS needs to be maintained on buses. The supervisor should alert maintenance so it's fixed. Because of lack of drivers, bus is not arriving as scheduled, so that we don't know if the bus is not coming, or if the bus GPS is not working, and that the bus is not showing on the map but is coming. East-west routes north of Midtown, there are none. Once again, I was told it was being addressed, but when pressed, would not give a time frame. There used to be a bus from Peachtree Hills Avenue to West Pace's very North Side Drive. I'm going to contact legislators that this situation is out of control, buses being canceled, along with the unreliable bus locator.
Thank you,
Because
Ms.
of the issues
Sullivan.
with the app, there's a lack of drivers. There'd be much more riders if you do your job.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Mr. John Van Holen.
Hi, my name is John Von Holland. I'm a downtown resident, and I'm going to read a Save MARTA BRT open letter. The appropriately provided was unanimously adopted by the Atlanta Downtown Neighborhood Association. The focus of the letter is to get Atlanta's first bus rapid transit line back in its dedicated lanes in downtown and correct the routing. Dear Atlanta, we ask you to amplify our voices, add your name to this open letter, and support our efforts to save MARTA Summerhill Bus Rapid Transit Line. The original route that was approved by Atlanta City Council, the Federal Transit Authority, and received a Tiger grant has been changed. A key section in downtown Atlanta has been replaced with a locally preferred alternative that the locals do not prefer. Crucially, this new route has 3 large sections in downtown where it will have to operate in shared traffic lanes in contradiction of BRT standards, slowing service and reducing ridership during peak times. In addition, this new route is in conflict with previously adopted plans, including the Downtown Master Plan, and would not support any known plans for expanding the BRT system through the region, such as #BRT System Plan adopted in the Atlanta City Design. When this change to the route's downtown section was made in 2019, little outreach was done to key stakeholders such as the Atlanta Downtown Neighborhood Association and the approximately 14,500 rapidly growing downtown residents most directly impacted. Those who did manage to hear about it and attend the meetings, all of which were held outside the downtown Atlanta neighborhood, did not get the complete story. Presenters portrayed a choice between the original northern BRT route connecting with just the east-west heavy rail line or changing to the current western route, which would offer connections to east-west, north-south, and the central 5-point station. Most respondents understandably voted to change to the current western route, given that incomplete information. In actuality, the western route dumps riders in the middle of South Downtown without direct connection to any current or planned rail. The original northern route offers a direct connection to MARTA East-West HRT line, the new light rail transit line, and supports faster connections to the central 5-point station via short walk or taking the rail one stop west. It also supports future extensions of the BRT line to additional areas of the city, direct connections to the existing north-south heavy rail line, and connections to several more planned transit routes. According to the latest round of meetings...
Thank you, Mr. Van Holen.
Okay, I ask you to review the letter.
Thank you. At this time, may I have a motion on the approval of the minutes of the October 14th, 2021 Board of Directors minutes.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Let us vote. The motion has passed. At this time, we will have our committee chair reports, starting with Planning and Capital Programs. Mr. Pond.
Madam Chair, the Planning and Capital Programs Committee met on Thursday, October 28th, 2021, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the disposal of permanent easements to the Georgia Department of Transportation for traffic signal upgrades at Linkwood Road at MLK Drive, Whitehall Street at Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, and 120 eastbound ramp at McDonald Street, Fulton County, Georgia. B, resolution to authorize the disposal of a permanent easement to Atlanta Gas Light Company for the installation of a shutoff valve in Lot 5 of the Shamley Station. C, resolution authorizing the contract award for the procurement of a letter of agreement for the Kensington Station Master Planning Services LOA L49711. D, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for construction management at Risk Services for pre-construction for Five Point Station Transformation Project, RFP P46354. And E, resolution authorizing the approval of the proposed service modifications for December 2021. Madam Chair, I request approval of these resolutions.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let us vote on the resolution. Resolutions have passed. Thank you, Mr. Pond.
Oh, one last item. Madam Chair, the committee received the following briefings: proposed December 2021 service modifications, and second, public hearing results of the proposed service modifications. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Pond. At this time, we will hear from the chair, Mr. Worthy, Operations and Safety Committee.
Madam Chair, the Operations and Safety Committee met on Thursday, October 28, 2021, and approved the following resolution. A, resolution authorizing the modification and contractual authorization for bus, tire, and lease services, IFB B36296. I respectfully request approval of this resolution.
This is Hartage, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let us vote on the resolution. Mayor Floyd.
Would you like me to abstain for him?
Yes.
Is that appropriate?
He's not here.
Thank you. The resolution passes. Go ahead, Mr. Worthy.
Madam Chair, the committee received the following briefings. B, Vehicle Technical Consulting Services. C, Sustainability Highlights, Looking Back to Move Forward. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Worthy. At this time, we will hear from Mr. Fryson, Chair of the Business Management Committee.
Madam Chair, the Business Management Committee met on Thursday, October 28, 2021, and approved the following resolutions. A resolution authorizing the award of a single-source contract for 8 parking deck call box upgrades and cabling services, RFPP P49632. Madam, Resolution B, I will like to take that off of this agenda at the moment for further discussion. I do want to go ahead and move forward with Resolution C, a resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of revenue shares of renewable natural gas services, IFB B47835. I request approval for these two resolutions.
I'll second the motion to approve resolutions A and C.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Let us vote on resolutions A and C. Resolutions A and C have passed. Go ahead. Mr.
Madam
Carson?
Chair, the resolution, item B, once again, it needs to be, have some discussion.
You want to move approval?
Yes, so move approval.
Any,
Go ahead and read the resolution.
Okay, the next item is a resolution authorizing award of a contract for transit and digital advertising services, RFP P48265. I request approval for this resolution.
I'll second the request for approval of that resolution B.
thank you. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to address some of the things we heard in public comment, and maybe get board counsel up here, Mr. Hunt, to help walk me through, and I'm sure some of the other board members through, the concerns that have been raised that I certainly have concerns with about a perceived misrepresentation in the Business Management Committee, as well as a comment that the agency that received the award is actually promising less revenue to the authority than the agency that did not receive the award. So, Mr. Hunt, if you could help walk me through that, please.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Chair Scott, General Manager Parker, board members. My name is Jonathan Hunt. I'm Deputy Chief Counsel here at MARTA. With respect to the resolution before the board today, I'd like to back up in answering your question and first differentiate between a bid and an RFP. What was issued was an RFP. In a bid, price is the determinative factor that is evaluated by MARTA staff. It is the sole factor. Once we get past the can they perform this service, price is the determinative factor. Whoever is the highest in a revenue-generating contract, or whoever is lowest in a cost contract will win that contract. In an RFP, the key item, and which is stated in the procurement manual, was clearly articulated in the RFP instructions in multiple places, is that the source evaluation committee reviewing proposals will consider and select the most advantageous proposal that presents an offer in MARTA's best interest to accept, considering price and other factors. In the RFP before you right now, the price factor is a factor. It was 35% of the total. The other 65% of the evaluation factors were a variety of industry experience and other items as detailed in the RFP. I won't quote them exactly because I don't have them listed specifically, and I don't want to make an error. There is an open protest, as you heard here today and know about. As such, MARTA has an administrative protest procedure covered in its procurement manual that we are going through now. I'm not going to address all of those items in that protest that came in from Outfront Media through their counsel. But I will address the one that came up in that pertains to a presentation that was given to the Business Management Committee, and it pertains to the last couple of slides presented to you. There was an error. In fact, the breakdown you have that was presented before you was a MAG, a fixed amount, and a revenue share for both proponents. For Outfront Media, they presented their MAG accurately. They presented their revenue share for bus accurately. For the first 3 years of the rail percentage, that was presented accurately. What was inaccurate was after year 3 through the expiration of the contract, including all options, was listed as 64%. There was a scrivener's error, and that should have been 66%. On the intersection media side of that presentation slide, all of that information was accurate. When you go back to the scoring, Outfront Media received 35 points, which was the maximum level of points available for pricing for this solicitation. Intersection Media received a lower score for that amount. So the fact that there was a scrivener's error or there were lines missing from a subsequent slide do not impact that. They can't get 36 or 37 or 38 more points. They received everything. So that Scrivener's error, which we made, and we do apologize, we being staff, has been accounted for. And further, it was indicated that the board didn't receive selected information, including the pricing sheet. Well, the board receives an agenda report, which is public, and they receive that, which includes a breakdown of the minimum annual guarantee, which was accurate, and all the scoring with the detail, as you heard earlier today during public comment, as well as many other pieces of information related to this solicitation. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hunt? Go ahead, Mr. Pond.
Just to summarize, in spite of this miscommunication on the proposal, the fact is that the scoring would not change, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Durrett, you have your... Are there any other, Mr. Abdul Salam?
Thank you. One of the questions that I have, and hopefully you can answer it for me, Mr. Hunt. Ms. McDonald from King and Spalding said that the MARTA Act states that it should be awarded to the lowest bidder. Is that in true fact?
If this were a bid, that would be absolutely correct.
But it's not for a bid,
It is not a
it's
bid.
for an
It is a
RFP.
request for proposal, which requires MARTA's Source Evaluation Committee to consider price and other factors. And those other factors are detailed in the solicitation document very clearly.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hunt? Hearing none, return it to you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Let us vote on the motion.
yes, it is. Call the question. Okay.
On the question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling for the question. It won't work? Oh. Yes. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? One opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I request, Madam Chair, that concludes my report. That's it.
Before the board?
Madam Chair, I have one other matter, and that is to request the settlement authority approving a settlement of $500,000 in the matter of Christian versus MARTA. I respectfully request approval of that settlement.
Thank you. You have heard the request for settlement. Is there any discussion? Any questions? May I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second, Pond.
Let us vote. We have to show it. By show of hands. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any opposed? None? Any abstentions? None. The motion passes. Thank you. Are there any comments from the board at this time? No comments from the board? This ends and concludes our MARTA Board of Directors meeting for November 11th, 2021. Everyone have a great Veterans Day. Thank you.
Contrary something.